hello everyone and welcome. My name is Kelly Jessup. I'm the Assistant Director for Digital Learning at Yale School of Management, Executive Education. Hope that you're doing well and we appreciate you taking the time to join us this afternoon. This is the webinar for the Introduction to Wealth Management Theory and Practice, also known as Yale's CPWA program. This is one of two financial certification programs we offer. It's modeled after our very successful CIMA online program, which is Investment Management Theory and Practice. Our program director, Jim Dobbs, who you'll meet in just a moment, was instrumental in creating both of these programs, so he knows them inside and out. During the webinar, we ask you to please engage with us and don't hesitate to ask questions. Jim is very knowledgeable, and this is a great opportunity to pick his brain. We may hold questions, but we will do our best to answer all of them. So when you have questions, feel free to pop them into the Q&A at any time. You can submit your questions so that everyone can see it, or just so that Jim and I can see it. And in terms of the chat function, we would ask that you use that just for any technical issues and not post your questions in chat. So now I'd like to introduce our program director. Jim Dobbs is CPWA certified. He's also CFP and CIMA certified. He was a financial advisor for 25 years and ran his own RIA practice before retiring from it to work full-time in his financial education company. Jim has worked with different certifying bodies and universities for the last 20 years, helping to build and manage financial certification programs. More importantly, though, Jim has had extensive experience with the Investments in Wealth Institute, which is the credentialing body for this exam. He personally helped create the CPWA certification and has served IWI in many roles, including as chair of IWI's Technical Advisory Board. Jim directed and taught in the classroom version of this CPWA course for many years and is now partnered with us to bring his expertise and enthusiasm to Yale and in turn to you. You will see he's a passionate guy, he's committed to success, and he measures his success based on yours. Please welcome Jim Dobbs.
Well, thank you very much, Kelly. Can you see and hear me okay?
Yep, everything looks and sounds good. Thank you.
Terrific. Well, welcome everybody. Yeah, let's take about an hour, give or take. Depends on how many questions you guys have got. Look, I'll even stay after an hour if we need to, if you want to ask those questions. Kelly's right. Ask anything and everything you want. The caveat to that is maybe like if you're still trying to determine if this certification is right for you, like given your personal situation, circumstances, shoot me an email, and then you and I'm happy to have a short phone call or email discussion with you after this, or maybe tomorrow, to kind of get those questions answered. Again, if you need to share some specific personal information with me, happy to field those questions with you as well. So let's start with the certification itself and the certifying body. Kelly mentioned it, Investments in Wealth Institute. If you haven't been to their website, you're going to want to go there. You're going to want to spend some time there, learn more about the certification. I'm going to walk you through kind of some high-level items regarding the certification, but go to their website, check them out. They've got a couple of certifications. We actually run two of their programs. Well, there are programs, but we run two registered certification programs through Yale, CIMA and CPWA. Those are both accredited, very important. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But check out all the other resources they have. We are not your certifying body, that's IWI, so they manage the exam like Kelly mentioned. We provide a registered education course for CPWA and test prep that goes along with it. And towards the second half of our chat today, I'll walk you through our course just so you can get a layout of the expectations and what you would be experiencing if you choose our program. But let's talk about the certification first. And the reason I bring that up is I would imagine some of you are still on the fence or just trying to determine if this certification is right for you or not. I think it's really important that you get that right. I was a practitioner for 27 years, and I did all these certifications when I was in practice, private practice, before I retired to do just the education, kind of as my twilight of my career, if you will. So I know everybody's super busy. You've got the clients, you've got your administrative and other corporate duties, not to mention a social life, hopefully. So you want to make sure if you're going to spend 100 or 200 or more hours getting a certification like this, which is really more elite and challenging, you want to make sure you get it right. So I would look at the topics list first. Here's kind of a high level view of it. And I'll give you the short of it as well, and then I'll make you an offer. So the short of it is this is like CFP, but it's more narrow in its focus because it's just focusing on those of you working with high net worth clients. And let's say, for sake of argument, high net worth is $2 to $5 million in family or client net worth, not investable assets. Let's just call it net worth and up. When you get to 20, 30, $40 million, then you're ultra high net worth, and this works too. But the sweet spot of this certification is really 2 to 5 million on the low end to, let's just say, $50 million on the high end of your client's net worth. So we're going to tackle human dynamics first, which is ethics, which obviously very, very important. There are a lot of bad actors in our business, sadly. We just need to make sure we nail that down. Behavioral finance, I think we all know that we can be technically strong, but if we can't manage our own thoughts and behaviors, well, we don't have much of a chance of helping our clients do the same. And then all of these plans go to waste if poor behavior undermines it. So really, really important. And then we're going to do family dynamics in that first section as well. Really important when you got a 10, 20, $50 million client who is clearly not going to spend all of that money during their lifetime. They're going to pass that down to the next generation and the generation after that. And hopefully you will be involved in that transition. Big deal. And if you don't proactively plan for that, that's just not going to happen. The statistics clearly show that most of the assets and the wealth is going to leave the firm of the mom and the dad, the patriarch and matriarch. Then we'll get into the more technical, like what you would think of in terms of wealth management, financial planning, tax, investments, risk management, asset protection, those kinds of things. But again, with the focus, not like CFP, which is so broad and covers just about everything, it seems like. And I'm one of those as well. I hold that certification too. But we're just going to dive deep in those areas that are specific to your clients that have this higher net worth. And legacy issues, obviously, transferring of wealth, charitable giving, charitable planning, estate planning. Here's a couple of differences. Well, let me just mention this. Then the last domain, as they're called, specialty client services. So we're going to talk about planning for your executive clients, planning for your closely held business clients, and then retirement management. And let me give you a couple of differentiations here now between CPWA and CFP. In CFP land, those of you who have gone through it, and if the numbers are any indication from what we usually see in our classes, about half of you already hold that certification. So in CFP land, retirement, a lot of that was retirement planning. Most of this retirement is retirement distribution. So withdrawal strategies. Is there such a thing as a sustainable withdrawal strategy? There's a lot of information. We're going to go through that. Distribution, especially on the tax ramification side. And then who are you distributing? Who is your client distributing the assets to? Is it to the spouse? Is it going to be to the kids? Is it going to be the grandkids? Just who exactly is that to? So that's going to be a little bit of a different slant on retirement planning or management. On the legacy issues, couple of differences. Estate planning, like when I did CFP, seems like a million years ago. It was a full-blown college level course, took for credit. Actually, there were two of them. And we got into trust a little bit, but not super detailed, and especially not with specific types of trusts. So we're going to go through about 23 different types of trusts in this program, and any of those could be tested on your certification exam. I'll talk about testing and all that fun stuff in a little bit, but that would be a difference. So we're just going to go to a much deeper level. Think tax, legal, structure, asset protection, ramifications. Who are these trusts really better suited for, and then who would they probably not be a good fit for? Now, that being said, it's not like many or any of you are licensed and practicing attorneys. You might. We always have some estate planning attorneys. We've even had IRS agents in our program before. But most of us are not that. We're just going to have the dialogue with our clients. We're going to discover where there are challenges and potential opportunities. We're going to have those discussions with the clients. Then we're going to get them to our in-house counsel or their own estate planning attorney. But you still need to have a pretty thorough understanding of those trusts, those potential solutions to help in that regard. So again, it's a bit of a difference between CPWA and CFP. And the offer that I've got for you is, look, if you haven't seen the like 5-pager PDF of these domains with all the topics and subtopics in it, you need to look at it, because I think if you go through that over just 5 or 10 minutes, you'll quickly determine whether this, from a content standpoint, is the right certification for you right now or not. So just shoot me an email. You see my email address or addresses down there. I'll be happy to send you the full length version of that. So for any of you who are still trying to figure that out, yeah, spend 10 minutes on that 5-page document, going through all 500 topics. That's probably going to tell you, your intuition ought to be strong enough to tell you whether this is right for you. All right, I won't do a huge sales pitch on you. Obviously, I believe in CPWA. Now, I'm biased. Obviously, not only do I teach and direct this program here at Yale, but Kelly mentioned I actually helped design and develop the first CPWA certification curriculum. And most of us were CFPs at the time that were on that committee, including myself, as I mentioned. But the idea was, well, what about specific training, tools, knowledge, resources for us when our clients are now worth 10, 20, or $50 million? And CFP wasn't really designed for that. It was broader in nature. So the content is a big differentiator, and I think that's going to give you a big advantage if you earn something like CPWA. Higher compensation, definitely there are a number of studies out there that show that CFPs, CPWAs do better financially, think income, than CFPs, and CFPs do better than financial planners who don't have a CFP or anything else for that matter. This is third-party research on IWI's website. You can go check it out. There's CEG Group, there's ITA Group, Research Group, there's Cerulli. So they've got a number of different organizations who have done this research. I think number 3 is one of the most exciting ones. That's confidence, and I see that in you guys when I see you at the conferences every year. And it's not just a confidence with your clients and prospective clients, which clearly your confidence should grow the more you learn and the more skills you develop. But I think it's also in working with some pretty high-powered, pretty sharp attorneys and tax specialists, think CPAs, which you have to do when you're dealing with a decamillionaire client on a regular basis. And so just not being intimidated by them anymore and feeling comfortable, not only that you can hang with the conversation, if you will, but that you can add to it and help your client. So that's what we're trying to help you get. I'll show you the bench of faculty. It's fabulous. And again, the content I think should be really germane if you're doing comprehensive or nearly comprehensive, not just investment services for the high net worths. This ought to be right on the money for you. Okay, a couple more slides, and then we'll see if we've got some early questions from you guys. A couple of other metrics that you may want to take a look at. Average income, quite a bit higher, and wallet share, or the percentage of assets under management, for example, that CPWA designees manage versus all the other advisors that manage money for your clients. 67% adept at implementing family governance and educational programs. I think this is really critical, something that I had only just started getting good at, I think, before I sold my practice, which is really focusing on, wow, that next generation. That is not a 2-year process. That is a multi-year process that you've got to develop those relationships and get ready for that transfer. Otherwise, that money is going to leave as soon as your clients pass away. And then strong value proposition. This one's cool. I don't think I've seen any accredited certifications for sure, but even certifications that you've seen before. I don't know if I've seen anybody register over 90% in terms of the people that went through the program say this credential is highly valuable. That's a real high number, well higher than CFP or CFA. Not that those aren't great. I think they're awesome. But CPWA, I think we've got the curriculum and the teaching down right. I do think accreditation is important, and that's going to be more and more important. I won't get on my soapbox too long here, but there are something like just under 200 certifications registered with FINRA in this country, and that's probably way too many. And most of those, I would say, are not very rigorous. Doesn't mean it's not worth going through just to get some content, but the testing, the curriculum development, the ongoing management is just not significant. So I think sticking with accredited certifications would be a nice goal to have, and then the others are just supplemental for you. All right, I'll let you stare at this designation comparison, and we'll see if there's any early questions.
If we have anything at the moment, if anyone has any questions, do feel free to pop them in the Q&A.
All right, well, then we'll just move on forward. So here's a nice little comparison from IWI. I'm going to kind of almost star or circle, make mention a couple of things here. So CPWA, you know, it's Certified Private Wealth Advisor. It's like CFP, but it's more narrow in scope. That's why it only takes about 6 months on average versus 18 months. It's not because it's easier material to digest. I would argue it to the contrary. This is more challenging material to master. And I think the exam is more difficult on a question-by-question basis. Now, CFP covers a lot more material, so you've got to study a whole lot more, and then the test is more comprehensive in nature. So some people would say it's more challenging. CFP is more challenging in that regard, and I would agree. But overall, the CPWA exam is more a test of comprehension. Oh, sure, you're going to get lucky and get a little bit of memory and recall in terms of maybe a fifth of those questions. But most of the questions are going to be client circumstances, fact patterns. You've got to analyze this or that, come up with a recommendation. It's just a more challenging exam on a question per question basis versus CFP. And then we have the CIMA program, as Kelly mentioned, which is like CFA, but different in that CIMA is really for, well, it's easier to say it this way. CFA, in my mind, is perfect, is wonderful for institutional money managers and securities analysts. So if you need to be at that level, you need to go through the pain of earning your CFA charter. But if you're client-facing financial advisor, investment advisor, financial manager, sales professional, anything like that on the investment side, that's not one of the former categories I mentioned. Then CIMA was developed for you, and that's the sister program that Kelly and I work with here at Yale. All right, so there are some prerequisites, and really I should change that slide to requirements to earn your certification. We'll get into getting through education and the test and what have you. That being said, you do need to have a bachelor's degree, or if you don't have a bachelor's degree here in the U.S., from here in the U.S., they will accept one of these other certifications or designations in lieu of a bachelor's degree. Now, I mentioned inside the United States, so let me take this opportunity to kind of write up on the front end of this session to say CPWA is heavy U.S. tax code focused. So if you are not in the U.S. or you are not working with U.S. clients or clients who are subject to the U.S. tax code, then CPWA is probably not going to be for you. That might be one where if you're still on the fence after hearing me say that, you can reach out to me personally. We can have a little talk about it. But it's heavily based on the U.S. tax code. You're going to spend dozens of hours minimum studying the U.S. tax code. So if that doesn't apply, then CPWA is just not going to be the best fit for you. You do have to pass a background check, and I'm glad that they do that. I think that's very important. As I mentioned, we've got some bad actors in the industry. Certainly want to have accredited certifications like this weed those people out. Makes us all look bad, but worse, it's just bad for the public. People are out there doing bad things. 5 years experience in the financial services industry, and that's at the time of certification. So one question we commonly get asked is, well, I'm at 3 years or 4.5 or whatever. Can I start the program before I hit that 5-year mark? And yes, you can. So in this particular certification, you can begin whenever. I wouldn't recommend it if you have no experience, because this is going to be a big bite to chew on if you're brand new. But if you're 3 or 4 years in, absolutely, you can start it. I would say probably between 5 and 10% of our candidates in our program are in that situation, and they're probably going to finish the education, pass their certification exam before they hit 5 years. They just then have to wait till the 5 years. That will be the final requirement that they check the box on to use the certification. So yeah, it's okay if you don't have the 5 years yet. But again, if you're 0, 1, 2 years, this might be a bit more aspirational. Reach out to me and I'll be happy to have that talk with you. All right, IWI does still offer some scholarships. Now, that being said, we don't have anything to do with it here at Yale. We don't have any discounts or scholarships on our end, but IWI does, and you can see the categories there on the left for which you might qualify. And look, they're like $1,000 and up. So I think if you're on the fence or you're not sure, I'd go ahead and apply. And you're going to want to do that before you apply for CPWA candidacy. So this would be like the first step. Go to that link there, the website within their website, and go ahead and just apply. It only takes about 5 or 10 minutes. It's not a lengthy process. Now, I will say that sometimes it takes them a while, according to our candidates, to get back to you and tell you if you're getting any scholarship. So this could hang up your registration, if you will. But if you've got time and that's not an issue, go ahead and apply. The last comment I'll make there is, we don't know all the details, but we do know that there's a timing mechanism to this, in that in terms of their budget or their allocation or whatever you want to call it, there's so much money per month or per quarter or something, and so they'll run out. So it's possible that you are late in the quarter or whatever, and you apply for a scholarship. Well, they're all out of scholarships, but if you just wait 3 weeks, then the spigot turns back on. That's all we know, but you'll want to reach out to them and ask for specifics on that if that's of interest to you. But just wanted to give you a heads up on that. There is some kind of timing element to it, but you can reach out to get them and get more details there. All right. All right, so let's talk about the certification process just briefly. It's really pretty easy. I want to spend most of the rest of the time talking about content and expectations on walking through the process. So again, first step is really submit your application for a scholarship if you think you might get one. And then next, the actual certification process, you're going to apply for candidacy through your certifying body. And that, of course, is IWI, not us. You'll do that on their website. I'll give you a couple of links at the bottom of this deck at the end of our presentation when you're ready to apply. It's all online. And when you're going through that, you're actually going to, if you're approved, you're pre-selecting, if you will, the education program that you want to use. So like you'd check Yale online program, it would be, I think it's still in a drop-down menu in one of the pages of that application. Takes them about a week to run your background check, go through the application, and then tell you, hey, Jim, congratulations, you've been approved as a CPWA candidate. And now we're going to send Yale an email communication and let them know that you have chosen their program. And then it takes us about a week as well. So it's about a 2-week process, give or take, a few days either side of that, to go through everything you need to and then get up and running in our program. So again, part of that is the accreditation process. There's more hoops to jump through, more regulatory requirements to be met. And that's part of why it takes a little bit longer versus some of these organizations. And I've done it too, so I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but you can jump on their website, pay $900, and then like literally within 30 minutes, you're up on their site and doing your thing. So it's a bit more formal than that. Once you've passed our course, which I'll show you in a minute, you're going to study for the certification exam, pass the certification exam, and then they send you some licensing paperwork. You pay your initial certification fee at that point, and then you're certified. They'll let you know that you can use the mark. So that's the process, not that complicated. All right, let me hit goals and objectives and then maybe one more slide and we'll see if you've got questions. So again, anything and everything's fair game. Just go ahead and throw it in there and Kelly can let me know what you're thinking and asking in just a minute. So I think it's important that you know what we're trying to help you with. We've got a lot of goals and objectives, but I put the three biggest in my mind up. The first one is to go through the 500 topics and cover everything. We're not going to cover it all at the course level. We're not going to cover all of it at the test prep. Sometimes it's both, sometimes it's just one, but it's all going to be covered. And I think any program that has an education and test prep component should try to do that. So that means it's not short, even though it's not as expansive as CFP curriculum, it's still quite a bit. The second one's the one I'm most excited about because when I talk to you guys at the live events and the conferences that I see you at every year, especially after you've gone through our program and earned certification is, yeah, were you able to take your practice to the next level? You know, did you develop knowledge, skills, tools, resources that helped you turn the corner in your practice, serve your clients better, bring in new and better clients, work with the other financial professionals on your client's team in a more effective and efficient way? That's the exciting stuff. So I mean, theory is important and examples and calculations and all that's important. But I think the most important is sits right there in the middle. Can you take your job, your practice to the next level? That's what gets me most excited. And last but not least, because again, I was in your chair doing all these certifications once upon a time ago as an advisor myself. And as your time grows with us and you get closer and closer to your exam, I know it's going to be about the test. So I'll show you how we handle that. I'm sensitive to that. So yes, once you get to test prep, it's all about the test. I'm just trying to help you study as effectively and quickly or efficiently as possible, given there's 500 topics and there's no way, and let's say it's over 1,000 when you count subtopics, there's no way they're going to test you anywhere near on all of that. And I'll show you the exam layout in just a minute. So I just want to help you cherry pick, if you will, as you get ready for your exam. All right, I'll let you stare at flexibility and convenience, and I'll reach out to Kelly and see if we've got any questions.
Thanks. Yes, we do have a few that have come in. How much is the program based on US clients?
How much is the program based on working with US clients?
I'm assuming that's what
Okay.
the person meant. Yeah.
Yeah, good
If you want
question.
to, if you want to clarify that, go ahead and you
Yeah,
can
good
amend
question.
that. But
I
yeah.
think you could probably apply 30 to 40% of this to any client anywhere. But because tax permeates just about every section of the content, other than the first 3 sections, so that's 8 out of 11, wow, you're going to study a ton of tax that's just not going to be relevant to your non-US clients, or at least your clients who are not subject to the US tax code. And as you probably know, if you're a citizen particularly, the US lays claim to the ability to tax you on your worldwide income. So even if your client is living in Europe or Asia, if they're a U.S. citizen, they are going to be subject to U.S. tax code, and that would be relevant. But yeah, look, if most of your client base is Canadian or Singaporean, then this would not be a good fit for you because you'll just way overstudy the U.S. tax code for what will be applicable. Yeah, you'll be able to pass the exam, but it just won't be that applicable in terms of practice. So hopefully that helped.
Okay. And then some of these you might want to defer, but I'm going to ask them now anyway. What is the pass rate for students who enroll in the Yale program?
Yeah, good one. I am going to touch on that in just a minute, but I'll give you a little teaser. I wish I could tell you what our pass rate is. We're not allowed to, but I will give you some information. But boy, do I wish I could tell you what our pass rate is. Okay.
Yeah.
Any
And
other-
yeah, last question for now, and I know you will come to this, but is there a deadline to complete the program and take the test?
Yeah, so I'll get into kind of nuts and bolts in just a minute, but I'll give you the short answer of that is you can come into our program at any point in time. Yeah, there is a cutoff. I'll talk about that in just a second. And then you can take the test, the certification exam. You'll take tests in the Yale course, but you can take the certification exam anytime during the year, and you can take it a couple of different ways. I'll show you that in a minute. The caveat is you've got to have passed a registered education course. So I'll show you what it takes to pass our course if you choose ours. But yeah, it's an ongoing exam. It's not like some of the others where there's testing windows and that kind of thing. No, you're just going to test whenever you're eligible and whenever you're ready. Good question.
Um, can you clarify access to yourself and access to the community in our class in Yale SOM, etc.?
Yeah, so I'll
Yeah.
let Kelly tackle like this, the social networking and the connections opportunities within Yale and Yale SOM and Yale SOM Executive Education. I will say this, within our program, within Canvas, you will have a pretty robust, if you will, I need to come up with a better word than that, a pretty exhaustive discussion board. And we can talk about that layout if you're interested. And you can interact with each other. We don't post your contact information, though, for privacy reasons, obviously. But you can, there is a discussion thread where you can reach out and say, hey, I'm Jim, I'm new to the program, or whatever. And I would like to work with you, anybody that wants to work, like kind of create a little cohort here and study on Tuesday or Thursday nights, or maybe come together every 2 weeks or whatever. And here's my information. If you're interested, reach out and let me know. So we do have that. We do see that happen in our discussion board, but we're not going to post your information, contact information, and name within the Canvas. But Kelly, anything to add on, meeting up with others at Yale in any kind of way?
Yeah, I mean, so once you complete our portion of the course, you certainly are a member of the executive education community, and we would share, we'll share that. You'll get an email from us that will have, various like social media groups you can join. I know that people do form sort of self-formed study groups. Um, I don't know that we can make campus facilities available for that, but I know people do, certainly, meet up with other members of the cohort, whether it's, in person or virtually.
Okay, any other questions, Kelly?
Yep, we do have a few more coming in. What is the average amount of time necessary to study for CPWA if you have not studied in many, many years?
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm going to actually talk quite a bit about that in just a couple of slides. But I'm glad you raised the issue of haven't studied in a while. So I wasn't going to say anything about that, but I will in just a minute. Good question.
Okay. And then last question, if you're awarded a scholarship after having paid for the program, can there be a reimbursement?
Yeah, that I have no idea of. So like the timing and how they do that and all that. I do know that they tell us to recommend to you guys to apply for scholarships first. But if you've already been accepted as an applicant, a candidate, and then you go back, I don't know how that works. I hope that still works, and then there's just a reimbursement, but you'll need to reach out to them directly on that one. Good question.
How many people are enrolled per month? Beginners, middle of the course, finishing the course?
Yeah, so ours is asynchronous, as you can kind of see on these next couple of slides. We don't have starting points, so you are going to apply and register and come into our program at whatever point in time. Unlike the other programs where there is a cutoff and there is a scheduling component to it, I want you to be able to work fast or slow, and I'll explain that in just a second. So we have anywhere from about 400 to 600 people in our program at a time throughout the course of the year. So that's kind of give you an idea of the size. Now, that being said, more CPWA candidates choose Yale than any other program. So we are the largest, but that's kind of the scale, if you will.
Okay, thanks everyone. Thanks for your questions.
Yeah, keep those
We're
coming.
going to move on, but yep, keep them coming.
All right, so you've already seen this now. The idea is not just that it's online, but it's on demand. So you don't need to travel to go. Everything is on demand. We may do a live session occasionally, but if we do like a new tax update by Steve Siegel or something, but if we do, it's going to be taped and on, videoed, recorded, and on demand anyway, because almost everybody always just chooses on demand. When we do live events, we'll get a handful of people show up and that's it. So you can download, copy, save, and print as long as you don't share it with anybody. That's the proprietary nature of this program content at Yale. But that gives you the flexibility. So like think of the videos. I'll talk about those in a little bit. You can download those as MP4s, and watch the video, or MP3s, convert them to MP3s and just listen to them. So if you're on the train or the bus or the plane or whatever, you don't have to be online to be going through most of our material. Just taking our course tests that I'll show you, that's really the only time other than downloading that you would need to be online. So the idea here was just total flexibility and convenience. So you could do this on your own time. We know that's really important to most of you, so that's why we set it up this way. All right, here is that study time expectations discussion that I alluded to earlier. 100 to 200 hours is very normal. Now we have, I would say, noticeable but not fat tails. Think of a population-based curve. And yeah, if we have 100 people, obviously we have way more than that. It's not unusual for 10 of those people to need more than 200 hours, and maybe 5 of them or 10 of them less than 100 hours. For CPWA, I think the record for our candidates is 24 days start to finish, log in the first day, take and pass certification exam on day 24. But that's not for everybody. That was an exceptional candidate who had enough time to devote as well, not only experience and incoming knowledge. But I think 100 to 200 is where you want to plan. You can fast track this. You can go as fast as you want. That's the whole idea. Or you can go as slow as you want. We didn't create official cohorts because I realize some of you want to go fast and you want to try to knock it out in 40 or 50 hours in over a month. And then I realized some of you are like, oh, no. If 6 months is average, I'm going to take at least that long. I've got learning challenges or disabilities, or with one of the last questions we had, somebody just hadn't been studying at this level of technical knowledge for a while. It may take you longer to get back into that habit, into that routine. And so I don't want the people who are fast tracking to stress out. The people who are not slow tracking, I don't even know if that's a word, but are going on average clip or slower. And I don't want the people that are taking longer to frustrate those of you who want to go fast. So you're going to go through it as fast as you want. Now, we give you guardrails, timelines, recommended study schedules, all of that stuff. So when you go through the course and the test prep, you kind of got your arms around it and you know what you're shooting for. And I'll talk about a little extra guidance on that in just a minute. But as you can imagine, it all comes down to how much knowledge do you already have? How much have you studied this stuff before, and what kind of different ways? Your study habits, do you have good focus, or do you have to retrain yourself to really get into the weeds on this? This is not like your securities exams where those are mostly, not all of them, especially like the options and derivatives and managers exams, but most of the rest of them are just memory, where you just study some practice questions, and if you have a good memory and take it seriously, you should pass on your first attempt. No, as I mentioned before, this is more applied. You're going to get detailed fact patterns on this exam. They're going to make sure you know what you're talking about. You just didn't memorize some practice questions or slides. So study habits, I think, are really important. And again, the whole idea is you move fast or slow, you can get through this as quickly as you can and are able, if that's your goal. All right, $72.95 is kind of the rack rate, if you will, the price point. And you'll see that on IWI's webpage when they compare the programs. But a couple of caveats. One, the scholarships that I mentioned could bring that price down quite a bit for some of you if you get a nice multiple $1,000 scholarship. And then the other one is when you look on the IWI website, the way they got it laid out, we look like the most expensive program, but we're really not, because we include test prep, which I'll show you in a minute. And it's comprehensive. You're actually going to spend more time in our test prep section than you are the course itself. That being said, you don't need to buy then IWI's, I think they call it the accelerator test prep package or whatever. You don't need to buy anything. In fact, I would recommend, per most of our candidates who have come through our program and nailed down by those who went through our program and bought that for whatever reason, they say, don't do that. Just study what's in the Yale program. That's all you need. It's the fastest way also to get through it, and it doesn't cost you anything extra. So we're really not the most expensive option because you don't need to buy anything else. Everything's all in our program. As I mentioned before, ongoing registration. It's ongoing in that you're just going to pick the time that works for you. The only thing I would mention to that in my experience with candidates through, gosh, 15 years of CPWA or however long it's been since we launched it, 2008, so there you go, 17 years, is pick a time, pick a window that works for you. So, like if your practice is heavy tax, especially tax compilation and returns, February is probably not going to be, March is not going to be a good time to start because you're so in the weeds. It's going to take you a while. And you have a year, as you can see here, to complete our program. Actually, that's a year of access, and that's what your fee buys you. So like if you look out over the next couple of months and go, oh, it's summer and I really don't want to study. I want to be at the lake with my kids and my family and whatever. Well, then don't start now. Start when you're in August or September when you're ready to ramp back up. So I think that's the only guidance I would give you in terms of when to start. Start when the next few months doesn't look any worse in terms of time management than the rest of your annual kind of schedule, if you will. Yeah, so you've got a year of access, but you really don't need all of that. It's, again, 6 months is about normal. Ours is a little bit less once candidates get up and running. When I say up and running, I mean, if you can dedicate 8 to 10 hours a week for this, that should be enough. You don't need to go 15 or 20. You can. I'm not saying don't do that. But I mean, if you could just consistently most weeks hammer out 8 to 10 hours, that's a good quality commitment. 2 to 3 a week, not so much, because when you jump around like that, or you take large breaks in between, you lose the momentum, you start forgetting things. And then when the course material builds on itself and you're getting right to the next advanced content or application, it's just hard to adjust there. So 8 to 10 is your goal. And if you don't think you can put that in now, then I would wait. But back to the cost. If you run out of time and you're not certified yet, you can buy another year at Yale. That's our price, $2,250. But you really don't need to do that. All you've got to remember, to be online, you just need to take the tests online. Everything else you can download. So like if you got in a pinch and your boss or your company wasn't going to reimburse you for another $2,250 for another year, well, then just pass the 11 course tests I'll show you in a minute, and then download all this study material. Don't share it with anybody, but just study off your hard drive till you're ready to take your exam. So you really shouldn't need to do that. All right, speaking of the course and the test prep, so here it is. We use Canvas in this particular program. I love Canvas. It's, I believe now, the most commonly used online learning or LMS, learning management system in the world. And we've got a nice blended version of that. So we got enough bells and whistles to make it interesting and be cool, but I didn't want it to be overly complicated because I know more and more of you are using online learning platforms and systems, but I didn't want there to be much of a learning curve. And there's not. It won't take you hardly any time to get up and running and comfortable in this platform. We use a number of texts for readings, but they are not the primary tool. They're more like think of them as a readings library, if you will, when you watched a video or you're going through some test prep and you're like, I think I've seen all that Jim and the others have for me in video form or summaries and practice questions there, but I want to go deeper. I want to fill in some knowledge gaps or take a deeper dive. Then that's what the library is for. That's up to about 2,500 pages. We use CCH for a lot of that tax and estate planning content. And so you'll have PDF versions or PDF readings from those various resources that I think could be very helpful when you need the deeper dive. So you're going to watch 11 video lessons, just like if you were in New Haven and we were in the class. It's just we all went down to the Yale studio downstairs and we recorded our sessions there, and you're just going to watch those. They're all on demand, so you can speed up, slow down, watch it again, do whatever you want in that regard. It's going to take you about 30 to 40 hours. Watch the 11 section videos, take notes. Don't worry about the certification exam when you're at the course level in our program. Just get through the course. Take your notes, kind of just take it in as much as you can. Take your notes, take these tests. They're all of those 11 tests one after each section. They're all online in your platform. They're not proctored. You can take them as many times as you need to. We just need a couple of things. One, I want to give you incentive to pay attention, obviously. And then number two is we need an assessment tool because you're not there. I can't see you there. We can track that only so much, right, with an online system. So I need an assessment just to make sure you're grasping some things along the way. Once you pass your 11th course test, you have completed the course. We send your name to IWI and we send you an email and say, congratulations, Jim, you've passed the course. Now all the test prep for the certification exam populates, it opens for you. And then you'll spend the rest of your time. So see what I meant when I said it earlier, you'll spend most of your time in test prep, 30 to 40 hours. Maybe you're going to spend another 100 hours in our test prep as you get ready for the very challenging certification exam. All right, and then the certification exam test prep, which is really the second half of the program, think of it as like part 2 or part B, if you will. It is content mostly in different delivery formats, if you will. Oh yeah, still a lot of video, but it's not about full-blown explanations and application and illustrations. It's me walking you through 11 sections and saying, over the last year, I update those every year. These areas of the 500 topics in this section, section 1, these are highly testable. They show up all the time, so you really need to nail down these next 5 or 7 slides because something like this is probably coming your way. Okay, see these next 4 slides? They're tested regularly, but like not all the time. I don't know, 50-50 chance you get it. So make sure you feel pretty good about these too, because you could get them. And these next 3 slides covering these 3 topics, they almost never test on this. So just skim over these. I don't think you're going to be tested, but just take a look at them just to be in case. So that is done by design because you've got over 1,000 topics when you count the subtopics. And the exam is not going to cover nearly, even most of that. So you just need a way to be efficient in your study when we get to test prep. So you've got the videos where I'm reviewing about 1,500 test prep slides, something like that. Now, I'm not hitting all of them. Again, I'm just showing you where they're heavily tested, giving you a little heads up here and there for different things. And then you're going to go into practice questions on each of those 11 sections. So you watch my video, you're making your notes in my test prep slides, and then you're taking anywhere from maybe 15 to 50 practice questions on each of those sections. Well, a couple of them have more than 50, but so you're just practicing, you're assessing. Am I strong in this area? Do I need to go back to the course videos and do that section again? Where am I in terms of mastering this for this exam? And then by the time you get through 11 sections, you should be pretty self-assessed. If you're not, you'll reach out and give Ross or me a call. I'll mention what your resources are in a minute. But if that's not enough, then we even give you a timed mock exam based on the weightings of the certification exam. So by the time you've finished, you've done several mock exams worth of questions. I only want one formal mock exam, and here's the reason why. My experience with candidates in programs like this is they go straight to the mock exam as soon as you allow them. And then they overemphasize looking through practice questions. Then they fall into the memory trap where they're just memorizing things and they're not really comprehending and going to a deeper level of knowledge and understanding. So to get you out of that, I've broken up all of our practice questions in the test prep slides and in the practice sets in each question, and then finally the mock exam. So hopefully that pedagogy makes sense to you. Been doing this for a long time. That seems to work the best for most candidates most of the time. So that's why we do it that way. Okay. Couple of thoughts on the CPWA exam, and we'll just kind of head towards the finish line here. So go ahead and get those questions in, your last questions, as we run out of the hour. 135 questions on the exam, 125 are scored, so 10 are non-scored beta items. You won't know which ones those are. 4 hours. Common question is 4 hours enough? It all depends on how prepared you were. For those who pass, which is a majority of our candidates on the first attempt, then yeah, they may have had 30 minutes or even an hour to go back through questions and take a second look at some of them, and we give you some ideas on how to do that. You can take this in a testing center, or you can take it at home. I recommend testing centers. You'll see in our program why I do that. And the pass rates are higher, by the way, not by huge amounts, but for those who test in the testing centers. Calculator policy, you will need one. It's not like you're going to have 20 TVM questions or anything like that, but you're going to need one. The HP 10B series, including the 10B2 and 10B2 Plus, and then the TIBA 2 Plus, those are the most popular ones. So I think either one of those series will be just fine for this program. If you need to kind of practice up, go to tvmcalcs.com. Lots of great examples where he literally just walks you, it's free, literally just walks you through a lot of very common questions on different exams using about 12 different calculators. So it's great. So if you just don't know the order or where the buttons are, that's a good, spend an hour there. That will help you a lot, I think. CPWA sort of exam page includes the pass rates for the person who asked before. So thanks for that. So it's about 80% is the pass rate for those first-time CPWA certification exam testers over the last 2 years. And again, most of the testers come from our program since we have the largest market share. So we're driving that pass rate. And again, I wish I could tell you what our first-time pass rate is, but they won't let me do that. But anyway, 80% is what it is across the board, which I think is pretty high. I don't think that's because it's an easy exam. I think it's just because we have more serious type of professionals in a certification like this, and they typically have a lot more experience than individuals in the CFP program, for example, and other designation programs. All right, where's my help? Very important, one of the last important things to mention here. So yeah, you have access to the Yale and Dobbs education staffs for administrative logistical questions from 8 to 5 Eastern, Monday through Friday. Canvas is basically 24/7. So like if your videos don't look right or whatever, it's probably not Canvas. It's probably your browser or your settings or a blocker or something like that. Discussion board, you certainly want to use that. You form a study group if you want to. We see that pretty regularly as well. If you ever have questions about your study plans, am I studying the right thing? Am I on the right track? There's no limit to those. So we'll do that by phone or Zoom. And if you have content questions, we have to limit you to something. We beta tested this, and 12 is plenty enough to where if you have a content-related question, you can reach out to the designated faculty and ask them that question through email. If they need to have a follow-up by phone or Zoom, he's happy to do that, but you get 12 of those. We're not priced as an academic or degree program because we're not at Yale SOM Executive Education, so there's that limit. I will say this, if it makes you feel any better, that less than 5% of our candidates are asking even 12 questions, let alone wanting to ask more. So it's really not an issue. I think 12 is plenty generous in that regard. But last but not least, if you're an individual who are like, yeah, but Jim, that doesn't fit my learning style. I want to interact regularly with faculty or somebody in this program as I go through, then yeah, nobody is going to be a good fit in CPWA land because I don't think anybody offers that, but we certainly would not be able to help you at that level. So just wanted to be very upfront about that. Great program instructors. Toby's awesome. There's even a little video of him on our website, the Yale CPWA homepage. So check him out. I've been working with him for over 20 years, not just in CPWA, but other programs, certification and otherwise as well. He's awesome. Michael Kitsis, most of you know who he is. John Nersessi and Richard Joyner, they're outstanding instructors as well. I'm just happy to be on the faculty bench, to be honest. It's a star-studded bench for sure, and all of the bios are up on our website. I'm not going to go through this, but I just want you to know we take the quantitative and qualitative feedback very seriously. We are not perfect. We try to be, but we're not. But we are going to try all the time. Are we covering this at the right material, or is our test prep right on the money or not? Where could we get better? We take all of that, even though it's been like 7 or 8 years now, and I think 2,500 candidates, something like that. We take this very, very seriously. When you're ready, you can go to IWI's webpage. You're going to apply for candidacy. Remember to do the scholarships first. or you can get to their link through a link on our website if you want to do it that way, but you're going to eventually just end up at IWI's website. And then here's Kelly and my information, and I think we've got maybe even 5 minutes or something to wrap up with some questions. So let them fly.
Okay, just a question about downloading. Can the material / textbook be downloaded to an iPad?
Yes. iPad's not awesome with Canvas, but it's way better than it was 10 years ago. That being said, we have full versions of some of the texts when we have rights for that, and that's available via PDF. You could just download. But most of them are a series of readings from a number of texts and resources within those learning objectives. So remember the topic list that I showed you just the kind of the overview of? In the 5-pager, we have readings in each of those sections. And even in most of those subsections. So you're actually just going to go to our readings library. You can download all of that. There is an easy way to download the print material like PDF readings where you can download all of it at once. So yeah, you'll be able to download what you need to.
Follow-on question, what do you recommend other than an iPad?
Yeah, I think a laptop, a desktop, an iPad, they're all fine for Canvas. Even our tests that you have to take, all fine. What's not great? The phone. Can you do it? Yeah, and you'll be able to see PDFs, you'll be able to see web pages, but as you know, there are so many different phones and formats that it's all over the place in terms of this phone or this operating system within that phone is actually pretty good or is just horrible. So the one recommendation I have, I think any of those are fine, but the phone, not ideal for this layout in Canvas. Good question.
Can I toggle between iPad and MacBook?
You can. Now, certain operating systems are better than others, but once you're logged in, if you're logged in both places, which you're allowed to do, then you should be able to jump back and forth. Now, it's not as important as some other programs where like you're actually working through and there's a whole lot of check the boxes. You have to meet these requirements in both in your bouncing back and will the one operating system recognize you've already done that, or at least will you be up to date in your Canvas login? That's really not an issue here. It's those 11 tests. So the only caveat is I would recommend choosing one or the other for your 11 required tests, because that's really the only hard and fast. You've got to hit those buttons, pass those tests to move on to the test prep. That's really the only caveat I would give you for that.
Okay. We have a question about the calculator. How much calculator use and toward what content areas?
Yeah, I mean it's similar to CFP in my memory and recollection, with a couple of exceptions. Yeah, anything present value, future value, calculate interest, calculate return, calculate dividend, calculate annuity or annuity due. Yeah, all the basics you need to know, and you can find that on the tvmcalcs.com website. That being said, there are some more nuanced questions that you could see on the exam, and we've got examples of those in our material, such as client fact pattern. Now you need to figure out how much they need to save for a very detailed cash flow pattern that they are expecting upon retirement. So there is some application in that regard as it pertains to learning your financial calculator. That being said, according to most of our candidates over the last year, you're probably not going to have to whip out the calculator, a financial calculator, for more than about 5 questions. Now, you're going to use your calculator for many more questions than that, but it's just going to be simple addition, subtraction, that kind of thing. Think taxes. You're not doing a lot of time value of money calculations as it pertains to taxes when you're figuring out what the AMT bill might be. That's any old calculator would do, but financial calculator you will need. Good question.
Okay, and that brings us to time. So we're just going to go ahead and get wrapped up. So thank you very much, Jim, and thanks to everyone who joined us this afternoon. Thanks for all your great questions. As Jim mentioned, for more information, you can visit our website or reach out to either of us directly with any additional questions. We will share this recording, including the slides, in the next few days, so be on the lookout for that. And while we hope to see you in our program, course, to us, the most important thing is that you find a program and path that's the best fit for you. So thanks again for sharing your time with us today. This concludes our webinar. Have a great day, everyone.